So, guys, we're going to be talking about Texas again. First, we have this one from Salem with an S. Said, finally finished Suris with buns. That is adorable. I wish I could see the rest of that outfit, but that is adorable. Said, oh, just looking at the chat real quick. The next one we have here is, it's two of them actually. It's from Makachin IRL. I made some Suris coins for candy. They're Owo coins made with perler beads. Of course they are. It is better than the alternative. I will say that. The last one we have today is one from Taylor Allen, and it's actually the reason I'm using the fall model right now. Because Taylor Allen is the artist who originally designed the fall outfit before it was taken to Remixin for completing as a VTuber outfit. But I like the energy of this piece. I like the bending of the hammer. It seems like it shows exactly how much force is coming down there. Splitter Kid, thank you for redeeming your points for an owl. And actually a fungus, thank you for redeeming your points for an ada. You fucking degen. But, and Stop the Stupid, thank you for the follow. I don't think you can stop the stupid, though. I can't either. The caption on this is mad with power. And yeah, I could see that. This is a really neat piece. I like it. As always, everyone, thank you all for your fan art submissions. If you want your fan art to be shown in a future video, the best way to do so is to drop into the fan art section of the Discord. With that said, if you haven't subscribed already or hit the bell notification icon, please consider doing so. And also, check my Patreon out if you want to support what I do here on this channel. With that said, let's go ahead and talk about the subject matter at hand. So, all of the information we have here is being filtered through and coming from one Chris Geidner. This is about a mandate that Judge Reed O'Connor in Texas has just put through as a ruling. It requires employers to provide coverage for PrEP drugs. What is a PrEP drug? Well, a PrEP drug is something that prevents the transmission of HIV. So, it's not, or rather, let me rephrase that. What Reed O'Connor is doing is he is saying that requiring an employee to provide health coverage that includes PrEP drugs, things that prevent the transmission of HIV, violates the religious rights of employers. Misworded that the first time. Sorry about that. So if we put two and two together on that, before we get into the article itself, it just reads like your standard homophobia. Said how? Well, Sir Promise, so if I were to take myself back into the mindset of a fundamentalist conservative Christian, so I'll put myself back as like pre-18 years of age me, the way I would have justified that myself would be to say that I, as an employer, should not have to pay money to let people live in sin. Because there's that idea in America, a lot of this happened during the Reagan administration, the idea that AIDS is a gay virus. Now, what a lot of people don't realize, also, we just finished the hype train. Thank you very much for that, guys. What a lot of people don't realize when they say that is there's some scientific reasoning behind why more gay people get HIV than straight people, but that has to do mostly with protection. So, typically, we have in America very, very bad sexual education. We have terrible sexual education. So, statistically, when people think things like condoms, usually they're thinking about them as a contraceptive, not necessarily a way to prevent STDs, at least not earlier on in life. It seems like common sense condom helps stop STDs, but it's only common sense if you've been taught about it. I remember when I was a kid, I never actually got a sex ed class. I didn't realize that some STDs that were transferred via one type of penetration could also be transferred via orally. So a condom was supposed to be useful for both situations. I didn't know that. Sorry, I just knocked my mic. I didn't know that when I was younger. I remember having that conversation with my first girlfriend because she had actually been in public education her entire life and had a sex ed class and knew better. I did not. So speaking from experience, yeah, that's a fairly common thing that can happen, is people not knowing about that. So what you'll find is that people who don't need contraceptive, so people who are engaging in gay sex, will find themselves not using the contraceptives for its ability to be a barrier for STDs. This means that there ends up being a much higher proclivity for those STDs to spread within those populations. It has nothing to do with them being gay, though. It has zero to do with it. It's literally circumstantial. Circumstantially, you find yourself in this group that is less likely to use contraceptives, therefore this happened. Has nothing to do with it being a gay virus, but that's a thing that we were told here in the States. Papa says, as an IRL teacher, hearing about sex education in the USA seems so messed up, and seeing teachers there having beep, 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 to resort to put a sock and protect your foot is kind of messed up. I mean, yeah, though, like, if you think about it, the way that we have to teach it, for the most part, is just like, hey, you put on clothes to protect your body from the elements. You put on clothes to be more comfortable. A condom's going to do the same thing. Don't not use a condom. Please use contraceptives. If you're with somebody for the first time and they're like, hey, I'm on the pill, that does not mean you don't use a condom there. You still want to be using one. Them being on the pill does not mean that they're not going to magically not give you an STD if they happen to have one. Also, a thing that compounds this here in America, a lot of states actually made it a federal, a felony, not federal, but a felony state by state, to knowingly infect someone with HIV. Now, you would think that that's a good thing to have on the books, but it's really not. Because what ended up happening, we saw this in California. What ended up happening was people who thought that they might have it would avoid getting a diagnosis because they wanted to still be able to be with people without having a felony thrown on them. People would actively not test because the way the law worked was it was your knowledge that was the key factor. If you knowingly spread the virus. So if you never got a diagnosis, you could never know you had it, which would increase the rate of infection even further because people would be... That ditto, Dumpy is trying to push that Bulbasaur over the edge. That is evil and disgusting. Anyway... like, you would end up having more people get infected because people wouldn't know they had it, because knowing they had it meant that they were a ticking time bomb for getting in trouble with the government. So, it's the reason that recently, like within the last 3 years, California actually amended its law to change it to a misdemeanor instead of a felony. This is a good thing. It was a very good thing for them to do that. Ayaka Wachtel, thank you for subscribing with Prime. Because by doing that, you increase the likelihood that people are going to get tested because they're no longer being threatened with being sent to jail for a felony. But let's get into the article itself, now that I've given an incredibly long primer on the reason there's this association with homosexuality in the United States with this. I do that because I know that there are some people who are watching either here or are watching on YouTube when this goes out, who are across the pond who might not know our particularly spotted past when it comes to the AIDS crisis in America. But let's get into the article itself. The federal requirement that insurance plans cover medication that is 90% effective or 99% effective in preventing the sexual transmission of HIV to the person taking it, known as PrEP, violates the religious rights of objecting employees. At least that's what United States District Reed O'Connor ruled Wednesday morning. The ultra-conservative federal judge in Texas also ruled that the members of the task force that recommended the coverage were unconstitutionally appointed. Felicia Angel said, my parents knew others during the first aid stuff, and yeah, it was a combination of bad, but also like, we don't trust you due to a long reason why. If the first ruling stands, One of the most effective ways of ensuring access to one of the most effective ways of fighting HIV could face significant challenges. The second ruling calls into question the legitimacy of all preventative care recommendations the federal task force made in the wake of the Affordable Care Act. O'Connor did not issue any remedy yet in this case, the relief that he would order in light of his findings. Instead, he called for the parties by Friday to propose a timeline for another round of briefing on what relief he should grant, as well as a group of other issues that could themselves become more significant if the case proceeds. Of course, we have a picture of the memorandum itself right here. Before the Trump era, O'Connor, appointed by former President George Bush, was clearly one of the most conservative district court judges in the nation. Even now, he's still in the top 10, at least in terms of output. He has ruled repeatedly against both the Affordable Care Act and LGBTQ rights, which is relevant here. Conservative lawyers seek out his courthouse for an eagerly supportive ear or pen. He is so far to the right, in fact, that many of his rulings have been reversed on appeal or overturned indirectly by conflicting United States Supreme Court rulings. Yes, even by the Supreme Court after Justice Amy Coney Barrett took former Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg's seat. But that was before this past term, when the reactionary 5-justice majority, sometimes joined by Chief Justice Roberts, has taken the court in an even more objectionable partisan direction. The problem with this ruling comes down at this time is that it's impossible to say that any court above Connor, the U.S. Court of Appeals or the Fifth Circuit of the Supreme Court, will stop him. They should, to be clear. Opposition to the ruling came far and wide on Wednesday from House Speaker Nancy Pelosi to the former Surgeon General in the Trump administration, Jerome Adams. The question is, will they? This particular challenge was brought in 2022 on behalf of a handful of employers by Jonathan Mitchell, the former top appellate lawyer for the state of Texas, who more recently is known for being the lawyer behind Texas HB 8 vigilante enforcement of the 6-week abortion ban. In the lawsuit, individuals and companies have raised several objections to various preventative care requirements resulting from the ACA. In addition to the PrEP coverage requirement, the lawsuit takes aim at the HPV vaccine requirement, contraceptive coverage requirement, and youth health guidelines related to drugs and alcohol and STI screening. So this is not just about preventing HIV medication, preventative medication for it, to get into the hands of people who need it. This is also just rolling a shit ton of things backwards. Aura, thank you for redeeming your points for an owl. So I think there's nothing that can stop these fundies other than making a fundy stand where they can have their theocracy. Yeah, but then people will be born into that and be abused as well. Like, taking all the people who disagree with you and putting them into a place where they get to disagree with you in one geographical location doesn't stop more people from disagreeing with you for coming out of the woodworks, and it doesn't stop the people in those areas from being harmed specifically. Like, as an example, and I'm not saying disagree with you to, like, disparage the term fundamentalist. I'm not. Like, I understand what you're saying. I think, for me, the problem you run into is that you've not lowered net harm. Like, I'm really utilitarian where this is concerned. You can concentrate that harm into a specific location, but you've not lowered the amount of harm happening. Great Fundistan will forever seek to expand. Said, however, we could make an entire LARP about Fundistan. That's a thing we could do. So the problem is that they'll drag the whole world down with them. They'll do that wherever they are, either by trying to expand their borders when you move them into a single location, or by doing what they're doing right now. Moving the overall Overton window further to the left will do a lot of good where this is concerned. Said, these idiots are trying to encourage death by treatable diseases. Yes, they are. The question is, how do we handle that problem? In today's ruling, O'Connor sided with the plaintiffs of the PrEP coverage challenge and their challenge to the task force that made the PrEP recommendation. And while he ruled against the plaintiffs on several other grounds, he opened several doors and windows along the way that could help expand this ruling as the case proceeds, or encourage new litigation in other forms. The PrEP part. After holding arguments in July, O'Connor ruled on Wednesday that requiring no-cost coverage for pre-exposure prophylaxis medication violated an employer's religious rights under the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. In doing so, he credited explicitly anti-gay views expressed as religious belief as providing justification for their claim. So let's read what it actually says in the ruling. Let's see here. The PrEP mandate burdens the religious exercise of Braidword's owners. Braidword is a for-profit corporation owned by Stephen Hotsey. Hotsey objects to providing coverage for PrEP drugs because he believes that, 1, the Bible is the authoritative and inherent word of God, and 2, the Bible condemns sexual activity outside marriage between one man and one woman, including homosexual conduct. I did not read ahead. So, you know when I said that I was going to put on my old school fundamentalist pants real quick and try to, like, LARP that to see how I would justify it if I were being the person making that position? That's exactly how it got ruled. That is exactly the logic that was used. On the one hand, I'm terrified because that is not good. On the other hand, mildly proud that I got it right in one. Chrissy Ovo, thank you for redeeming your points for an you fucking degen. But let's go ahead and continue. 3, providing coverage of PrEP drugs facilitates and encourages homosexual behavior, intravenous drug use, and sexual activity outside of marriage between one man and one woman. So the drug use part is because one of the other ways that HIV gets spread is via dirty needles. That's just a thing that happens. Archimedes Archive, thank you for subscribing. But yeah, no, I don't agree with this. For one, I do not believe that as an employer, you should take your religion into account where your job is concerned if you are employing other people. Because not everybody who is employed at your workplace will share your religion. And it is not on you to impose your religious beliefs on those people. So then 4, providing coverage of PrEP drugs in Braidford's self-insured plan would make him complicit in those behaviors. Is his position there. Okay. What they do in the workplace is your business. What they do outside of the workplace is none of your business. Yep. And trying to say, like, I don't want to encourage my employees to be gay. Sir, your employees were already gay. You can't un-gay your employees by changing their medical coverage. That's not gonna work. He then relied upon the Supreme Court's 2014 decision in Burrell versus Hobby Lobby to conclude that the government and the courts cannot contest the correctness of the plaintiff's beliefs. So you can't contest the correctness of their beliefs? What you can do is say that they should not be relevant. Like, I can't tell you if your belief in any deity is real or not. I can't tell you if it's true. But I can tell you if it categorically shouldn't apply to our conversation. Like, I feel like I'm comfortable enough doing that. Functionally. Under RFRA, the government's PrEP coverage requirement could stand without exemption if it meets a compelling governmental interest and is the least restrictive means of advancing that interest. Specifically, while reducing the spread of HIV could be a compelling interest, technically he didn't even find that it is. He just noted that even if the plaintiffs don't challenge that. O'Connor's found that that's not enough for RFRA. Again, turning to Hobby Lobby, he stated that the government needs to show a compelling state interest in enforcing the coverage requirement against the plaintiff and others with similar religious objections. reducing the spread of a virus that at one point was considered a public health showstopper is legitimate need. That is legitimate enough. That is fine. But okay. So under that narrow rule, he finds that there is no compelling interest, in part because the government provides no evidence that religious objectors' coverage is essential, and in part because there are other non-religious exemptions. As the second part, O'Connor found that it isn't the least restrictive means because the government could just provide PrEP or to pay for PrEP for anyone who needs it. Wait, hold on. Problem here, the government currently doesn't do that by and large. We have the Affordable Care Act, but we do not have nationalized health care. We do not have full government-provided health care here. Like, the ability for the government to do this does not mean that it does in fact do this, at least to the extent that it would need to. This is like somebody going, okay, so as an example, this is like somebody choosing not to work a job, ever, because the jobs around them do not pay a living wage. To which I can wholly understand that position. The jobs around you are not paying a living wage, so you don't want to work at those jobs. I get it. I agree. Those jobs should provide a living wage. However, at the end of the day, you still need to find a way to take care of yourself. You still need to find a way to protect yourself. So choosing not to participate in the system, it isn't going to fix that system. You're working under the assumption that you not participating in it is going to magically make that system change. The same thing is happening here. Where O'Connor going, well, if businesses don't participate in that system, then something else in the system will change to cover for it. No, that thing needs to change first. That medication needs to be available first, and then we can talk about removing the employee restrictions. Jeebus. The logic of O'Connor's expansion and the reasoning of Hobby Lobby here could seemingly lead to even more extreme results. Could an employer successfully oppose coverage for pregnancy-related care utilized by same-sex couples? Going further, could an employer refuse coverage for any pregnancy-related care other than opposite-sex married couples? Yes, that's where that could go. Okay, let's say those don't work because RFRA statute and those would violate the Equal Protection Clause of the Constitution. We can go even more broad. What about refusing to include healthcare coverage that an employer decides, again, remember that per O'Connor, we can't look at the correctness of the belief, would make them complicit in gluttony or sloth? Is there any end to this logic? And would a Supreme Court so focused on religious supremacy even oppose that logic? Pulling on a line of Supreme Court cases interpreting the Constitution's appointment clause, O'Connor found that the volunteer part-time members of the task force are officers of the United States under the Constitution. This is based on a decision that they are in a continuing position or exercise of significant authority. If there are officers, that would mean they would have to be appointed in one of two particular ways. This determination that they are constitutional officers because they are in a continuing position is the weakest part of this section of Connor's ruling. Let's look at the ruling itself. The case demonstrates that monetary compensation in one aspect among many relevant to determining whether a position is constitutional or formalized, but employment positions take many forms, offering different terms, hours, compensation, and responsibilities. To be sure, the absence of a regular salary means the PSTF positions appear less continuing and formalized than a salaried position, other things being equal, but it is not dispositive, particularly when the members receive at least some compensation for travel or meetings and training. So literally having a group of people that are appointed by the government to do a job, he's disparaging that job based solely on them not having a salary versus them having a different type of pay structure. Well, okay, I don't have a salary on Twitch or YouTube. Fuck me. I guess I'm not a Twitch or YouTuber. I'm not a streamer. I can't. I can't be. I'm not being paid in a continuing fashion. I'm being paid in a sporadic fashion. Marissa, what are you Hold on, the problem. Marissa, I'm gonna delete that message. No, we don't advocate for that. No. Or rather, I'm going to delete it once I can get it to where I can. All right, looks like I have to go to the moderator room. That one will work. Like, I'm sorry. I understand the frustration. So do you feel a bit fired up? Then maybe you need to take a moment to step away. Maybe you need to take a moment to step away. If you feel fired up, and I understand content like this can do that, I get it. I wholly understand. But no, we're not going to talk about destroying people or anything like that here. No. That's not okay. I do not condone that. As somebody who used to be a fundamentalist conservative, past me would necessarily be in that crossfire. And if that is a bit of collateral damage that you would be willing to accept, then no, I don't agree. Yeah, it is better to educate people. It is better to change their minds. It is better to work on making the world a better place overall. Do not engage in tactics that you would not be okay with anybody that you disagree with using as well. Let's go ahead and continue. O'Connor then quickly determines that members were unconstitutionally appointed because officers must be appointed in one of two ways. A principal officer, which he found the task force members to be, must be nominated by a president and confirmed by the state, which admittedly they weren't. Even if they were inferior officers, O'Connor added their appointment would still be unconstitutional because of the director who appoints them is not one of the people constitutionally permitted to appoint inferior officers. While the PrEP ruling has a more tangible effect in the immediate reading of the opinion, the PSTF ruling could have far-reaching effects, up to and including invalidation of all of their actions, due to the range of recommendations made by the task force. This is something still to be determined during the upcoming remedies. So I want to see if there's another part of here linked here. So plaintiff's non-delegation argument relies almost entirely on the majority reflections of HRSA in Little Sisters of the Poor. The court might well decide, perhaps soon, to re-examine or revive the non-delegation doctrine, but we are not supposed to read tea leaves to predict where it might end up. The court thus grants summary judgment in favor of the defendants as to the claim to plaintiffs. Okay, so this is basically just saying that there could be far-reaching side effects, but the judge in this case does not find the side effects of their ruling to be something that he cares about or can even bake into his decision because he doesn't know if those side effects are going to happen or what they will be. As a result, he's not going to use them in his determination, which I think is a really weird way of saying, I am short-sighted and I refuse to not be short-sighted. That's gross. It almost is immature, but, you know, I'm talking about a judge in a court system now at that point. Said education doesn't work. Yes, it does. It worked on me. Apologies to disagree with you, but educating people and getting them to be better does work. Is it the most effective mechanism? Fuck if I know. It's the one I'm going to advocate for, though. A newbie, and if you don't live in America, I don't see why you're scared. Okay, let's maybe take a moment. Let's take a moment of this. Let's take a moment to make a quick secondary bit of conversation about self-help, mental health. Said this bleeds into Canada. Understandable. However, as it has not yet, letting the potentiality of this control you would not be healthy. Do not let these things get to you to the point where it starts affecting your mental health. If you need to take time to step away, you need to take time to engage in something that you enjoy, to disconnect, engage in some escapism, I highly encourage you to do so. That goes to anybody in chat. That's not just to a Nubian. That's anyone here. Also, think about the posture check, Aether. I do need to crack my back. Politics is scary. Politics can be a very frightening thing. But you have to understand that when you are dealing with it, when you are engaging with and in politics, there's a proclivity that a lot of us have to let it control our lives. If you do that, people who want to disparage LGBTQ people, who want to disparage minority groups, people who want to make their lives worse, they have succeeded. They are succeeding at that point. Many of their goals are to make people like you less comfortable, less happy. Do not let them win. Do not let people whose goal it is to increase the suffering in the world succeed in that. This is why I'm trying to have my community be a combination of positive things that we can all enjoy together and then understanding the world around us politically. Both of those things. Because I feel like if those things do not go hand in hand, if that positive outlook does not go hand in hand with understanding of things politically, then you can find yourself spiraling down. I never want to have a community that will eat itself alive, spiraling itself downward. And I never want to be the type of creator that functionally encourages that. No doomerism. No toxic positivity either, but no doomerism. Archimedes Archive, thank you for redeeming your points for an... fucking degen. Sometimes self-care for me is looking at the video title and going, I don't have the spoons today. Yeah. Like, find that comfortable middle ground away from being sheltered about what's in the real world around you, but not so engaged with it that you let it control you in a negative way. Take care of yourself. Loved ones, family members, whatever it ends up having to be, please take care of yourself. And I think that's going to be, conveniently, where I end that topic on. That's going to be the cutoff of the video. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Subscribe if you haven't already, all that other fun stuff, and insert end of video tagline here.